Hello and welcome to another episode of Latitude. I'm Maruf Raza. Sheikh Hasina's Awami League in Bangladesh swept the country's general elections, but with Bangladesh's National Party and 21 other political parties boycotting the elections, the Awami League's victory has been described as politically and morally flawed, with post-election violence leading to demands for fresh elections. And to discuss the present situation in Bangladesh and its ramifications for India, we will be joined by Mr. Farooq Subhan, former Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh and a former High Commissioner to India and currently President of Bangladesh Enterprise Institute. Also, later in the show, we will air an exclusive tell-all interview with the newly elected President of the Maldives, President His Excellency Yamin Abdul Gayoom, that was given to Times Now's National Affairs Editor Srinjoy Chaudhary and Deputy News Editor Mitu Jain. President Gayoom will talk about the strategic Indo-Maldives relationship and how accurate is New Delhi's concern of the growing Chinese influence on the nation of islands. Following the large-scale boycott of the January 5 general election in Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina's Awami League garnered a 3/4 majority in the new legislature. But Begum Khaleda Zia's Bangladesh National Party and 21 other political parties, as well as the United States, have opposed the poll results, with post-election violence in Bangladesh already having claimed many lives. And New Delhi is watching closely as fear of another military intervention in Dhaka looms large.
They boycotted the polls after their demand for a caretaker government in Bangladesh was overlooked by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. The result, Bangladesh saw an ugly start to the year 2014, marred by violence and a general election which the opposition and the Western world is calling a farce.
নিরপেক্ষ তত্ত্বাবধায়ক সরকারের দাবি আদায় করে গণতন্ত্রকামী মানুষের চেতনার প্রতিফলন ঘটানো, সেই অভীষ্ট গন্তব্যে না পৌঁছানো পর্যন্ত সর্বাত্মক আন্দোলন অব্যাহত।
Even before Bangladesh went to polls, the result was clear. Sheikh Hasina emerged victorious, not because she got overwhelming support from the masses, but simply because she won a one-horse race. Of the 300 constituencies, over half had no contest at all, since only Awami League candidates or its allies had registered. Even in the capital, voting took place in just 9 of 20 seats, raising questions about the legitimacy of these polls.
নির্বাচন শান্তিপূর্ণ নির্বাচন হয়েছে। 18,000-এর উপর ভোট কেন্দ্রে ভোট হয়েছে। কিছু ভোট কেন্দ্র বিএনপি জামাত সন্ত্রাসী কর্মকাণ্ড করেছে। খুব বেশি যে পার্সেন্টেজ হিসেবে করতে পেরেছে তা না, তারা যেভাবে হুমকি দামকি আর যেভাবে সেই লাদেন স্টাইলে মানে ভিডিও দিয়ে নির্বাচন না করার ঘোষণা দিয়েছে, জনগণ কিন্তু রেসপন্স করেনি। কাজে এই নির্বাচন নিয়ে কোনো অভিযোগ উঠতে পারে এটা কিন্তু আমি বিশ্বাস করি না, কারণ জনগণ স্বতঃস্ফূর্তভাবে ভোট দিয়েছে এবং সেই ভোটেই আমরা নির্বাচিত হয়েছি এবং সরকার গঠন করে ইনশাআল্লাহ আমরা দেশকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে যাব।
Bangladesh's newly elected lawmakers have taken the parliamentary oath, even as the country is still engulfed in deadly confrontations. BNP's leader Khaleda Zia, a bitter rival to the Prime Minister, remains under house arrest. Former dictator Mohammad Hossein Ershad, who leads the third biggest party, Jatiya, has been locked up in an army hospital. A fourth party, Jamaat-e-Islami, was banned from the polls for being too fundamentalist. It is an election won with absolutely no opponent. The question is just how long will Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina manage to hold on to power in such circumstances?
India has reached out to both leaders, but it is a fact of life that when Awami League has been in power, that we have had better relations with Bangladesh. It's for a very simple reason that Bangladesh has cooperated effectively with India on security issues, whereas when the BNP and Jamaat government were in power, the kind of extremism and the kind of help that they were rendering to Indian insurgents, including smuggling of weapons and arms, was something that went against India's interests.
Meanwhile, India, which has long been seen as a Sheikh Hasina supporter, is clearly eager to see Jamaat and other Islamist parties weakened. Owing to Hasina's secular democratic politics and her stand against radicalism, which has helped keep India's eastern border peaceful. Thus, it comes as no surprise that while the US favors fresh elections in Bangladesh, India has reiterated that the Sheikh Hasina government has gone by the book.
It is clear that a friendly government in Dhaka will be necessary for New Delhi to keep India's strategic interests on its eastern borders at check. And joining us on the show now is Mr. Farooq Subhan, former Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh and a former High Commissioner to India and currently President of the Bangladesh Enterprise Institute. Sir, how important was it to hold elections under the current circumstances, especially as political stability took a beating with regular strikes and violence prior to and during the elections? This has also apparently harmed the country's economy. So was there another way forward?
Well, let me begin by saying yes, the economy of Bangladesh is in dire straits, and the number one priority at the moment is to end the violence and bring the economic life back to normal. Now, why did elections take place when they did? Well, the Awami League government and Sheikh Hasina believed firmly that they were required to hold these elections before the 24th of January as specified in the Constitution. So in their view, they were following the Constitution. I think I should also mention that there were views which suggested that the election perhaps could have taken place 2 months or 3 months later. Whether that would have resulted in the participation of the BNP and other parties, we don't know. But I should stress that the Awami League and Sheikh Hasina believed that they were following the Constitution in holding the election when they did.
Traditionally, Bangladesh has had a caretaker government to ensure neutrality of elections. And an Asia Foundation survey in September last year has also shown that more than 75% of the voters preferred the elections to take place under a neutral caretaker government. So why did the Awami League government amend the constitution to hold elections without a neutral government?
Well, the Awami League took the position that following a decision of the appellate division of the Supreme Court, they were required to revisit the subject of the caretaker government. And they took a decision that the caretaker system was valid and appropriate at a particular time, and that this was no longer required, that we had several free and fair by-elections, municipal elections, and therefore the country could look forward to a free and fair election under the existing government, which would go into, if you like, a caretaker mold or an interim government mold, as happens in parliamentary systems elsewhere. So the idea was that Bangladesh should now be in tune with the rest of the world.
While the Awami League insists it has won a free and fair election, but the opposition and many in the international community, particularly the US, have questioned the credibility of these elections. So has this dented the country's image and its ability to manage foreign relations?
Well, I think it is a fair comment to say that because a large number of parties did not participate in this election, this was in fact an election entirely dominated by one party, the Awami League. The general view and expectation is that there will be another election, and hopefully this time round with the participation of all the political parties. Yes, the response of the international community, and I would also say broad sections of public opinion in Bangladesh would support the idea of a second participatory election sometime in the near future.
The common perception here is that Delhi looks at a Sheikh Hasina-led Awami League government more favorably. But why is it that Begum Zia's BNP and Delhi cannot also look at each other favorably?
Well, my understanding is, while it is true that, for historical reasons, particularly 1971, when Mrs. Gandhi was Prime Minister, India played a very important role in the liberation and birth of Bangladesh. And Mrs. Gandhi and the present Prime Minister's father, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, had a special relationship. So there are strong historical ties between the Congress and the Awami League. And that is very much in evidence whenever the Awami League and the Congress happen to be in power at the same time. But my understanding is that the government of India is happy to deal with whichever government is in power, which comes through an elected process. We know, for example, that Begum Zia visited India not too long ago as leader of the opposition. She was received by the Prime Minister, and indeed cordial talks took place. So my sense is that at the end of the day, India will deal with whichever government happens to be in power, which comes through an elected or democratic process.
Thank you, Mr. Subhan, for throwing light on what is clearly a very complicated situation. Bangladesh is clearly India's most important other neighbor, and New Delhi must therefore have a range of options in place to deal with whoever eventually calls the shots in Dhaka. Welcome back. President Yamin Abdul Gayoom of the Maldives was in New Delhi on his first official foreign visit abroad after winning the elections in November last year. And he chose to meet President Pranab Mukherjee and Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh to further bilateral ties with India, its largest neighbor. President Pranab Mukherjee, in fact, reinforced India's desire to work closely with the Maldives in the Indian Ocean region, underlining the strong defense and security relationship between the two nations. The Maldivian president also assured Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh to amicably resolve all differences between the two countries, including over the cancellation of the Indian company GMR's contract to run Malé International Airport. And India extended a standby credit facility of $25 million to the Maldives for imports from India and agreed to meet the requirement of petroleum products in the island nation. And in an exclusive interview to Times Now's National Affairs editor Srinjoy Chaudhary and Deputy News editor Meetu Jain, President Gayoom answered a range of questions on India's concerns about increasing Chinese influence on the island nation and on his country's special relationship with India.
You've had a very successful visit and a lot of economic opportunities have come up. Currently, as of now, how many economic opportunities will there be for Indian business? How easy will it be for Indian business in the Maldives?
Thank you indeed. This trip has been very wonderful for me, very satisfying trip. I made a point to meet with the Indian industry enterprise I have briefly explained to them that we have a very open foreign investment policy, and we are particularly looking forward to having overseas investments, especially from India. So Corporate India, I have reached out, and I believe from the questions they asked, I believe there are quite a few of them who are serious about investing in Maldives.
But President Yamin, the run-up to your becoming president, the
Yes.
political situation was extremely fluid there and is likely to remain fluid in the days to come. What is the sense that, where Indian businesses are concerned, what is the sense of confidence that you are giving them? And is there a possibility that perhaps in the days to come, if you look at just one example of, say, GMR,
Yes.
GMR became a symbol of anti-India sentiment during the
Right.
elections. Is there a sense perhaps that in the days to come, a company like GMR, which was actually the largest investment in the Maldives,
Right.
could perhaps one day build an airport for you? Is there a sentiment of that sort that is there in the Maldives?
We have had Indian investments for over 40 years, and some have been very big, even bigger than GMR. For example, the SBI. SBI's first venture out of India has been to Maldives, and the biggest investment, most long-serving investment in Maldives from India has been SBI. Even now there are Indian investments, new investments, already existing investments. GMR is just an offshoot. It's a kind of skewed investment in Maldives. It's just an exception rather than the norm. And in the case of GMR also, what we have seen is that clearly, if you look at GMR, if you make an assessment as to how they were given a contract, there was lots of controversy around that issue. It is not through a fully liberal for investment regime. Parliament has at that time legislated a law against that. But in spite of that, President Nasheed contracted this negotiation and contracted an agreement with GMR. GMR also well knew that the Parliament had legislated against that. Parliamentary approval, according to the Constitution, was required for any major investment like that. Outsourcing an investment, privatizing a public investment, specific, clear permission was required by the Parliament. And in spite of all of those things, all of them have been marginalized, and President Nasheed chose to sidestep all of these. So that was the unfortunate incident as far as GMR is concerned. Having said that, we also note that even after the GMR incident, we have lots of other Indian investments, like the Tatua Group, like the Tata Group, and even yesterday's discussion showed that yes, GMR is an issue that we need to reckon with, mutually, amicably settle. But then I don't believe that is going to deter further investments from India. I don't think that is going to deter further investments from India. I'm committed to rule of law. I'm committed to upholding foreign investment law. So all investments registered, permitted, and contracted in accordance with foreign investment law will have maximum protection of our laws. Unfortunately, needless to say, but unfortunately, that was not the case with GMR. So we have an issue with GMR, but I'm hoping my administration would be able to resolve that.
So coming to this issue, moving away from business, and coming to the issue of security, the sense that is there in the Indian security establishment is the rise of Islamic fundamentalism in Maldives. Is this a sense that you get that where Islamic fundamentalism is concerned, is it just an area that political parties are exploiting because it's a politically convenient issue, or is there a sense that yes, fundamentalism is on the rise in the Maldives because there have been several instances. For example, on the Af-Pak border, you have Taliban training camps, and Maldivians have been found to be training there. There have been incidences where Maldivians have been killed in drone attacks, and there have also been incidences that in Maldives itself there is a very willing population there which is keen on this kind of a situation building up there.
As far as my administration is concerned, it is not an issue that we are too worried about. Yes, you have people with different perspectives on Islam, moderation, or pure faith being exercised, but it is not an issue that comes to my attention as a security issue. When Maldivians go abroad, for example, training, the major problem has been that we have not got enough scholarships for us to send people for more liberal Islamic scholarships. So lots of people have been going to Pakistan, as you say, and while as young people, when you study in these universities, you come across all these kinds of unfortunate incidents. Yes, you will have deaths, you may have deaths, but that is not to say that it is an issue of grave concern to Maldives at this point in time.
There is a worry in India that terrorism will use Maldives as a stepping stone and enter India from the south As you know, there have been fewer attacks in the southern part of India. And perhaps there is a genuine concern in India that this could happen from the Maldives. During your interaction here, has this issue come up for discussion, and what kind of assurances have you given to India?
This has been expressed by Indian authorities, and with, yes, seriousness. And any country like Maldives, we are surrounded by vast ocean. Yes, the opportunity is there, but I suppose we are both committed. This is the assurance I gave the Indian authorities, the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, and also the National Security Advisor. We will do our best to combat terrorism. And we are perfectly in agreement with Indian sentiments on anti-terrorism activities. So we will be working very closely with India on that. And also the question of maritime piracy. That is also an area of concern to us. So we are jointly working with India on that. And the whole area of maritime security of the Indian Ocean, we are in perfect understanding with India on that. India is the biggest country in the region, and whatever that affects India affects Maldives too. And whatever affects Maldives, and if Maldives could be a launching pad to attacks on India, yes, it should be a worrisome issue, not only for India, also to Maldives. So we are in perfect understanding on that. So yes, seriously discussed, and we have both agreed on mutual maritime security action plan.
The Maldives occupies a very important place geographically, and there is again concern in India about the growing influence of China in the Indian Ocean. Do you see any military involvement with China, your country and China, that would worry India a lot in the future?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Maldives-China relationship is as old, perhaps, as Maldives-India relationship. And China has been a superpower. China has been an economic force in this region for quite some time now. A lot of the relationship we have with China is not military. It's largely commercial. We have had very good diplomatic ties with China and a lot of other countries. China is a very close country, but nowhere in the past, nowhere in the recent past have we given any source of concern to Indian leaders. The relationship with China is going to affect the relationship we have with India. The relationship we have with India is far too close to us.
If you have to choose between India and China, what would that be?
I don't suppose we make those choices. I suppose all of these are quite compatible. All of these are quite compatible. India has always come to our call. India has always been very gracious, grateful in providing whatever assistance we have asked for. It's not only in terrorist attacks or natural disasters, but also this particular visit, for example, it has nothing to do with any of the grave issues you're talking about. But from our point of view, a lot to do with commerce. A lot to do with commerce, and India has yielded to all our requests. So the relationship we have with India is very, very close to us, and we cherish that relationship. But India also knows that we maintain very good relations with China. So that has not been a problem to India at all. Indian leaders are also very mature, very seasoned politicians. So I think they have been assured well enough, even during this trip. My administration's commitment to upholding Indo-Maldives relationship precedes any other relationship we have.
There is no denying the fact that China's shadow is on the increase over the islands. But the challenge for India is to retain its influence in a country that still takes New Delhi very seriously. That is all in this episode of Latitude. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.